Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, excited to be here.
This time we're diving into a world that's both fascinating and a little bit unsettling.
Hmm.
We're cracking open Aldous Huxley's Brave New World.
Classic.
It's a book that's almost a century old, but still feels eerily relevant today, right?
Oh, absolutely. Huxley tapped into some timeless anxieties about society and technology.
For sure. And it's incredible how well the book holds up.
It really is.
So we start right off the bat in this world state, a society that's all about control, stability.
Right from the very beginning.
And we're given this grand tour of a hatchery by, well, none other than the director of hatcheries and conditioning himself.
Talk about a job title.
I know, right?
Sets the tone.
It really does.
So we're talking about a world where babies aren't born, they're made in labs.
They're practically mass-produced.
Yeah, and categorized even before they're decanted, which is what they call it in the book.
Yeah, decanting, not birth. What did you think about that whole opening scene? I mean, it just throws you right into this strange new world.
It's a powerful introduction, that's for sure. Huxley doesn't ease you in, he just kind of throws you into the deep end.
Exactly. And one of the most striking things we encounter early on is this thing called Bokanovsky's process.
Yeah, it's like cloning, but on this massive scale.
Right. One fertilized egg is split into dozens, even hundreds of identical embryos.
It's how they create the different castes in this world.
The alphas, betas, all the way down to the epsilons, right?
Exactly. It's all predetermined, each individual's fate, even before they're born.
No concept of free will, no social mobility. It's pretty chilling when you think about it.
Totally. And then you add in hypnopedia, the sleep teaching.
It's like something out of a sci-fi nightmare. Moral lessons, social biases, even consumer preferences.
All programmed into your subconscious as you sleep.
It's creepy how effective it seems in the book.
Right. Nobody questions their place or their conditioning. They're just like cogs in the machine.
They're happy to be cogs. That's the really unsettling part. And then there's that scene with the children engaging in, well, let's just say unusual play.
And it's presented as perfectly normal, acceptable behavior for their age.
Exactly. It's just all part of their conditioning.
That scene really highlights how the world state manipulates human instincts and desires. Concepts like love, family, even monogamy, they're completely redefined in this world.
Yeah, it's all about control, and it makes you wonder what the true cost of this engineered happiness really is.
Right, because it's clear that questioning the status quo is definitely not encouraged.
Not at all. They have all these methods of control, from conditioning to soma, this drug that keeps everyone feeling happy and carefree.
And it seems to work, for the most part.
It does, until it doesn't. Which brings us to the character of Bernard Marx.
Ah, Bernard, the outsider.
He's an alpha plus, so he's at the top of the social hierarchy, but he doesn't seem to fit in.
He's restless, dissatisfied.
He's not as enthusiastic about the casual sex and constant distractions as everyone else seems to be.
He yearns for something more, something deeper than the empty pleasures that surround him.
It's almost as if he's experiencing a glimmer of what we might call humanity.
Exactly, those complex emotions and desires that the world state tries so hard to eradicate.
And that yearning leads him to seek out something different, something beyond the confines of the world state, which is how he ends up fixated on visiting the savage reservation.
This place where people still live in what we would consider a more natural state.
Yeah, it's like a relic of the past, a world untouched by the world state's control.
The savage reservation is fascinating because it acts as a foil to the world state,
It is.
A stark contrast that highlights the potential consequences of unchecked technological and social engineering.
Like two sides of the same coin, in a way.
Exactly. And it's up to the reader to decide which side is more appealing or more terrifying, depending on how you look at it.
That's what makes Brave New World so thought-provoking. It doesn't offer easy answers. It just presents these complex scenarios and lets you grapple with them.
It's a story that forces us to ask uncomfortable questions about the choices we're making, both individually and as a society, and those are conversations that are always relevant.
They are, and we'll delve even deeper into those questions as we continue our deep dive into Brave New World.
Sounds good to me.
So Bernard finally gets permission to visit this savage reservation, this place he's so curious about.
And he doesn't go alone. He brings along a companion for the journey.
He does. He brings Lenina Crown.
The
one and only. Well,
yeah.
Not exactly one of a kind when you think about the whole world state thing.
Right, not exactly unique in that sense.
Because we learned pretty quickly that Crown isn't exactly a unique last name in this world, is it?
No, not at all. It's like individuality is just not a thing in this society.
Not one of their priorities.
It's a deliberate choice by the world state, for sure.
To just completely emphasize the collective over the individual.
That's right. Even names are designed to minimize personal identity.
To create that sense of sameness.
Exactly. Sameness, unity.
And I think that makes Lenina's reaction to the reservation even more, well, more striking, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. Her reaction is priceless.
She is, like, completely horrified by what she sees.
She is not prepared at all.
Not even a little bit. Dirt, smells, old people. She's like she's landed on another planet.
Well, she basically has, right? It's about as far from the world state as you can get.
Talk about culture shock. It's like she stepped out of a sterilized bubble and into, well, reality.
Exactly, and it highlights just how sanitized and artificial the world state has become.
Completely. It's like they've eliminated all the unpleasant aspects of human existence.
Aging, disease, even death.
God.
Eradicated.
Mm.
But as you said, it makes you wonder, what have they lost in the process? What's the trade-off for all this comfort and stability?
But what does it even mean to be human in that kind of world?
Right, that's the big question lurking beneath the surface.
Exactly. And then amidst all this culture shock for Lenina, they have this, well, this almost mystical experience.
You mean?
The drums.
Ah, yes, the drums in the distance.
Like this primal, instinctual energy just seeping out of the very earth.
A stark contrast to the controlled, artificial environment of the world state.
Completely. And that energy, it's like it's embodied in John the Savage.
John, yes, he's a fascinating character.
He's the son of a woman from the world state, Linda, who, well, she kind of broke the rules.
Broke the rules. How so?
She got pregnant by accident.
Now, that is a rarity in the world state.
To say the least.
Especially considering who the father turns out to be.
Right. It's like, talk about irony, the director of hatcheries and conditioning, the architect of this whole system, he fathers a child outside of his carefully controlled world.
The irony is not lost on the reader, that's for sure.
Not at all. And poor Linda, she ends up stuck on the reservation, a place that's completely antithetical to everything she's ever known.
It's like a nightmare for her.
Totally. She misses her soma, she misses her casual sex, she misses her comfortable, carefree life in the world state.
She can't adapt to this, what we might call natural way of life.
Not even a little bit. She becomes an outcast even there.
Yeah.
On the reservation.
Linda's story is tragic because it shows how thoroughly the world state conditions its citizens. You know, they become so reliant on its artificial comforts and social structures that they're completely unequipped to deal with anything outside of that.
And then there's John, her son. He grows up caught between these two worlds.
The ultimate outsider.
Right. He's raised on the reservation, but he learns about this other world, this world state, through his mother.
Through her stories and memories.
And through this tattered copy of Shakespeare's plays that she brought with her.
Shakespeare. In the world state, that's practically ancient history.
I know, right? Talk about an education in contrast. It's like he's getting these two completely opposing views of what it means to be human.
Shakespeare becomes this window into a world of complex emotions and experiences that John has never known firsthand.
It fuels his imagination.
Exactly. It makes him yearn for something more than the harsh realities of the reservation, or even the shallow, artificial pleasures of the world state.
He's searching for something authentic, something real, something true.
But the question is, can he find it? And if so, where?
Right, because he doesn't seem to fit in on either side.
He doesn't fit in on the reservation because he's different, and he can't imagine ever belonging in the world state after seeing what is done to his mother.
It's a classic dilemma, the struggle for identity and belonging.
A struggle that's made even more complex by the fact that he's caught between these two radically different worlds.
And that struggle, that's what makes John such a compelling character to follow.
Because it's a struggle that many of us can relate to, even if we haven't experienced anything quite as extreme as John has.
Exactly. We've all felt like outsiders at some point, like we don't quite fit in.
And that's the beauty of Huxley's writing. He takes these universal human experiences and he amplifies them, exaggerates them in a way that forces us to confront them head on.
And in John's case, that confrontation is about to get a whole lot more complicated.
How so?
Well, because Bernard, ever the opportunist, decides to bring John back to the world state.
And bring the world state's attention to John.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So John's back in the world state.
Back in civilization as far as Lenina and Bernard are concerned.
Right, but he's not exactly fitting in, is he? He's like a fish out of water.
More like a wild animal they're trying to put on display.
That's a good way to put it.
He becomes this kind of novelty act, a curiosity for the world state elite to gawk at.
And Bernard, well, he's kind of loving the attention, isn't he?
For a little while, yeah, he's basking in John's reflected glory.
He throws these parties, hobnobs with the alpha pluses.
It's all a bit pathetic, really, because Bernard's still trying to find his place in a world he doesn't really belong to.
He thinks that having John around will somehow make him cool,
Exactly.
but John sees right through the facade.
Oh, absolutely. He's disgusted by it all.
The casual sex, the soma, the endless pursuit of pleasure without meaning, it all just repulses him.
And he tries to explain it to them, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He quotes Shakespeare. He talks about love and beauty, about God, these concepts that the world state has completely erased.
And they just stare at him blankly.
They don't get it at all.
They can't get it. They've been conditioned to find those things irrelevant, dangerous even.
To them, he might as well be speaking a foreign language.
It's like they're speaking two completely different languages, even though they're both speaking English.
It's a failure to communicate on the deepest level.
And then, of course, there's the scene with the feely,
Ah, yes, the sensory overload cinema experience.
where John just completely loses it. He throws up.
He can't handle the intensity, the artificiality, the emptiness of it all,
It's just too much for him.
which is interesting because for the world state citizens, it's the ultimate form of entertainment.
It's all they know.
And that's the tragedy, isn't it? They can't even comprehend what they've lost, what's been taken from them.
And then you have Linda, John's mother.
She gets her wish.
She's back in the world state, surrounded by all the comforts she craved, back on the reservation.
Endless soma, mindless entertainment, no real responsibilities or attachments.
That's like paradise, right?
Yeah.
But she's miserable.
Oh, absolutely. She's basically a shell of her former self, completely hooked on soma.
It's heartbreaking to watch, especially for John.
He loves his mother, but he can't stand to see her like this.
He wants to help her, but she's too far gone.
And then she dies.
Surrounded by these strangers, these emotionless, conditioned children.
It's a bleak scene.
It is, and that's when John finally snaps.
The hospital scene.
He starts ranting, throwing Soma out the window.
He's like a prophet, railing against the decadence and depravity of the world state.
He's trying to wake them up, show them what they've become.
But of course, they don't listen.
They just think he's crazy.
And their response to his passionate plea for freedom and authenticity. A mass orgy.
It's Huxley's ultimate irony.
The very thing John despises, the mindless hedonism that defines the world state, is their only response to his rebellion.
It's like he's speaking a language they no longer understand.
And that's the really tragic part, isn't it? The world state has been so successful in its conditioning that its citizens are incapable of even conceiving of an alternative.
They can't even imagine a world where people might choose to live differently.
And so in the end, John retreats.
He finds this abandoned lighthouse on the outskirts of the city
A desperate attempt to escape the clutches of the world state.
to find some peace, some solitude.
But it's a futile hope.
Because the world state, they just won't let him go, will they?
They never do.
They're obsessed with him.
They want to control him, to make him conform, to fit him into their neat little boxes.
But John, he refuses to be put in a box.
And that's his undoing. Because in the world state, there's no room for individuals, for people who don't fit in.
It's a tragic ending to a tragic story.
A cautionary tale about the dangers of sacrificing our humanity for the sake of comfort and stability.
And it all circles back to that question we talked about earlier, the question of what we're willing to give up, what we're willing to sacrifice for a life of guaranteed happiness.
It's a question we all have to answer for ourselves.
We do.
And there's no easy answer.
No easy answers in Brave New World, that's for sure, but it sure gives you a lot to think about.
It does indeed.
So, until next time, keep those minds open, keep those questions coming, and remember, sometimes the most uncomfortable truths are the ones we need to hear the most.